underground that was working here was the series of Irish language weekends. So a person who really was committed could attend 7, 8, 9 immersion weekends in a year. And so that would mean that each of those weekends you would go, make a commitment, the whole weekend, you're just going to speak Irish, you'll attend classes, there'll be cultural things that you'll be doing as well. But when you've got a break and you're still going to be thinking in Irish and you're talking in Irish.
The Irish language hooked me. Linguistics was my thing, and Irish does things, the language grammatically does things that very few languages do. And I just went, that's a language for me.
I learned Irish language when I was a kid. We used to have to drive on a bicycle 6 miles every Saturday morning to take lessons in the north of Ireland, because really the British government didn't want us learning. In 1900, in County Armagh, County Tyrone, County Derry, and a lot of those counties, Irish language was the first language in 1900, at the turn of the century in 1900. And within one generation, the British government stamped it out, Irish language.
But I was at an Fleadh Cheoil course. It was the cultural week. So it was the one where you have your Irish class in the morning, and in the afternoon you were supposed to pick a different kind of workshop kind of a thing. They had all kinds of different ones, and so I did the Shannon singing one. And the first day, met this woman whose name was Mary, and we were chatting away, and she was doing her PhD at UL, and I was like, oh, I'm going to be starting my master's there in the fall, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And so, yes, we hit it off, and we were chatting, we were both in the class and stuff. Our teacher kind of made each of us sing a verse one at a time, just to make sure we got it. And Mary sang, and I was like, I recognize that voice. And I was like, are you Mary McLaughlin? And she's like, yeah. And so I had to tell her the story that it was her book, Singing in Irish Gaelic by Mary McLaughlin.
If there's one thing that I wanted to say that stands out in my mind about Comhaltas and the Irish language is that when you got the language, you got everything, because everything clusters around it. If you go to one of these Irish language weekends, there's going to be dancing, there's going to be music, there's going to be singing, there's going to be history, and if you come out to one of the immersion weeks at the Gaeltacht here in Canada, there's going to be sports, all of the whole Gaelic packaging.
Well, we have regular weekly classes. There's a Bunrong class, the beginner's class, that's held at Queen's. It's been online through COVID. We've had different teachers to that. The classes here are generally led by Ruth and Anna Method. They lead the Manrong class here. And we have that every week, again, at Bob's house. We have an Irish language weekend every year, which is in April. And a lot of the members of Harp of Tara have been heavily involved, myself and my wife and Ruth and different people in the Gaeltacht project, which is north of Kingston.
Right, that's in Tamworth, isn't it?
It's just outside Tamworth on the Gilmore Road, yes.
Is that right? It's the only Gaeltacht outside of Ireland?
It's the only recognized Gaeltacht outside of Ireland, yeah. Yeah.
So at first, Terry had got a grant for Irish language books and material, CDs, so that the Irish language officer at the beginning, Bethany Jones, started our Irish language classes in 2010, possibly, maybe not the first year. And that was with Patrick Roach. We had come from Toronto.
Oh, yes, yes.
To the Irish Canadian Club.
Right.
And at the time we had maybe 5-7 learners.
Right.
And it evolved, and then when we moved from the Irish Canadian Club to the Corktown Hub here, in and around the spring of 2010, so just coming into 11 years ago, we had at least 2 sessions with Patrick I think they were 6 weeks long. They'd come down for a few hours. And then we tried also, we wanted to make it here at the pub so we could learn conversational. We've had Alison Reed ran a series of classes as well out of someone's home for a while. And then in the pub here, just learning how to ask for a pint, how to go to the ladies' room and the men's room.
Through Comhaltas, we've had several. We've had like a beginner class, a beginner basic, intermediate, advanced, and they've had a social class. So, I mean, that's like you're talking 5 classes, sometimes 6 going on every week. So yeah, a lot of people are interested in it, and it's a variety of age groups as well. So that's really good, and especially with the younger people or with the younger parents that are interested, they're actually introducing some of the language to their children. So not only will they be bilingual, they'll be trilingual.
It was one of the things, according to the Bunrock, that the Constitution, you had to have an Irish officer as well as as well as the rest of the thing. But there was nobody other than Chris in our group that was in any way a native speaker. We always had an Irish officer. That would have been Chris, because he spoke Irish.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I think it was more when Henry and Eamon started the other branch, that there was more of a because it was at the Irish Centre. They met in the Irish Centre, and I don't think it was as much Comhaltas as it was Irish being taught at the Irish Centre.
I lost a lot of the language, but Sheila will tell you how we were actually able to run Irish language lessons. So I just sit there and happily participate, like I'm not a major dynamo about the language. I mean, I would love to hear from Sheila really about what she feels about Comhaltas and Hamilton, how it works, what makes it great.
There is a real passion and interest in the Irish language in Hamilton. And thanks to Nora Rosen, she was at the time our language officer, and she found us a teacher. And I was able to arrange with the Irish Canadian Club that we could use their facility. And because Hamilton Irish Arts has funding available, we could do this at no charge to the people coming for the lesson. Because of our Tuesday night sessions and the generosity of Jim, the owner, who would give us $100 every Tuesday night, we were able to build up our funding. And this is one of the things we're really proud of. It is not restrictive. You did not have to be a member of Comhaltas paying your membership to come. And we think that way they get to know us, we're sponsoring, and that membership grows by letting them in first, and then happily some have taken up membership.
Through my involvement with the Irish Canadian Club of Hamilton, we were in the need of Irish speakers for some courses we wanted to run at the club. So we ended up having to look outside of Hamilton, and where we went to was the Grand River branch and talked to Les Starkey, and he was instrumental in setting us up with, his name was Phil Cullen. He was the first guy to come and give us a lesson. After that, it was Donahue, Patrick Donahue from the same branch. Taught some lessons there as well. But yeah, that was our first connection. Yeah.
Fantastic. How long ago was that?
That is going back to probably 2003. 2003, I'd say.
Now, there weren't a lot of places in Canada, like maybe 2 or 3 places in Canada where you could learn the Irish language. It turned out you could learn it in Calgary. And it was part of the Comhaltas branch there. And so I went to Comhaltas looking for the language, and they gave that to me, and boy, did I meet some wonderful people there. Jerry O'Reilly from Belfast, and right away he was on the side of the language that was completely captivating. It wasn't, here's a pastime or here's a hobby you might want to pick up. It's here's a lifestyle and here is some meaning in life. And that's what I needed at the time. And so I bought into that.
I had some good teachers, and I went to different places. I went to language weekends in Montreal or in Prévost. I went to Toronto, went to Kingston. We ran our own ones here, and I attended those. I wanted to absorb this language, and yeah, it just drew me in.
My wife and I got involved in the Irish language because one year, about 2002, we volunteered to sit at the desk at the Irish Language Weekend, and that's essentially all we did. We helped direct people, do a few jobs, drive people to their rooms and so on. And then it just kind of grew from there. We liked the people, and we started attending some of the classes at Queen's University with Ruth Waylaw was teaching them then at the university. And then after a few years, we moved on to language classes at Bob McDermott's house, which were being led by Anna Methot and Paul Gillespie. Anna is a lady who came from Ireland about 50 years ago. She was a nurse, and she had taken Irish in school when she was living in Ireland, but then she said she had never spoken a word of it for about 45 years. And then she came to an Irish language weekend once, and it all started coming back. So she's been involved with it ever since, and she still is one of the leaders in our Manwrong group.
It was just something I was always interested in. I come from the valley, up the Pontiac, and there's a lot of Irish up there. And it was a case of, well, you know, we speak English, but we speak English, at least in our area, with some different little phrases that you wouldn't hear anywhere else. And I often wonder, where did that come from? Like one example is, we used to say if somebody was slovenly or they were streelish. Where nobody knows where that came. So I asked one of my language teachers here, and he looked it up, and he said, yes, that word itself is a derivative of an Irish word, and I can't remember the Irish word right now, which meant you weren't careful with your appearance. So so there was that kind of that interested me to learn the different phrases we used and where they came from, how come we're still using them. And because a lot of people don't realize it's a Celtic word. So, but that really interests me.
Okay, so that's the real reason I got into Harp of Tara. So the same event that I went to when I just found everything, the boron and the dancing, there was a sheet of paper being passed around for people who wanted to sign up and join what turned out to be Harold Kenny's introductory Irish language course. And I was really interested in that. I had a lot of interest in Old Irish because of my background as a medievalist. I had a lot of interest in early Irish. And so I'd always wanted to do it, but never been possible because of all the other stuff you have to do. But here was this class, and I had nothing to do at that point. I didn't have my son. And so I signed up, and that just pulled me in. And then once I realized how interesting contemporary Irish was, really what Irish is as a language, then it's an addiction, I guess. Like, I just stuck with it, and that's become really, really important to me.
Well, we always had a cúpla at home anyway, and I wasn't, Mum would always kind of throw in a couple of words here. I didn't realize until I was in my teens that my dad had done all his primary and part of his high school, like early teens, Oscailga, and so that was a bit of a revelation. And I had also by that stage discovered that I liked languages, and so I wanted to learn. I wanted to know a little bit more. And it wasn't until I was, out of high school and at university and starting to look around beyond, my linguistic, and I was doing linguistics. I knew I had a thing for language. I loved languages. I had already learned French, English, and Spanish, you know, and I said, well, I have to pick up Irish because that's part of who I am.
Yes.
And so did a couple of the courses with Paul Burt at Ottawa U, and then got involved with, you know, heard about language classes through Comhaltas and all that kind of stuff, and, you know, just picking it up in different places. And that's where I started, you know, going to Toronto for the language weekends, going to Kingston for the language weekends. And then we started organizing our own, you know, up in Arm Prior, and just became more, the Irish language hooked me because I had to just, I wanted to just absorb it. And, you know, a lot of people kind of go, oh, you know, the Shevu rules and the Uru rules. And I'm going, like, to me, it was crystal clear what was going on.
Yes.
I could look at the language from a different angle. It just made perfect sense to me once I just kind of sat down and looked at it. And I had some good teachers.
I haven't been able to participate in the Irish Language Week only because I would be working, playing somewhere. When I was younger, I won 2 scholarships. My first year of high school, secondary school as they called it in Ireland, I won a scholarship to Rossmuck in Connemara. And that was amazing. Just speaking Gaelic, just in your regular run-of-the-mill day. And then the second year I won a scholarship to Donegal. We were close to Gweedore. But the dialect was different and up there from the Connacht one. But I mean, it was all a learning curve. I always liked Irish. First, it just came easy or whatever. So I taught it here a little bit, not all that much, but I can still remember.
There's something really deep, I think, about the Irish language because it's so old, and because I think as well, just like a lot of the literature, a lot of the stories, a lot of the songs themselves go back really far as well. And so I think it touches on something that's a lot older, and that's, you know, that just felt really special to be able to speak it. So I had this book, Singing in Irish Gaelic, by Mary McLaughlin, who I've actually since met, which was a very cool thing. And it's a fantastic book because it had the Irish, and then it was written out phonetically as well. And then it had the translation, it had the little, you know, sheet music on the facing page. And so I'm kind of looking at this, just, you know, looking between like the phonetic pronunciation and the Irish and kind of back and forth and be like, okay, there must be some kind of logic here, but I'm not getting it. But yeah, and I was just, at first I was just like, well, it'd be really nice just to be able to read it myself without needing to rely on someone else's pronunciation guide. But I knew there were a variety of dialects, that there's probably like little nuances that you just can't quite put into a pronunciation guide. And I found this site called Aaron's Web. It was like a rabbit hole. It was my great-great-great-grandfather who came over. And this is going to sound all kind of romanticized and stuff, but I felt this connection with my culture and with my ancestry.
You know, Stefan, the kind of lifestyle that I have here now. I'm sort of in a hermitage here for the last few years, but I do live in an Irish language environment, and so I've always got the podcasts playing from Radio na Gaeltachta. But when I'm at my computer, then I want to be sure that I'm not distracted by other nonsense you might find on the internet. I'm not speaking the name of any politicians who might cause obsession in the news, but rather than that, just play TG Catter. So you've got not only the and I wouldn't call it a distraction, but there's movement, there's activity, but it's all centered around the Irish language.
I remember being asked to teach, the first time I was being asked to teach, and I was going, well, like, I'm barely carry on a conversation that you want me teaching. But, you know, I said, oh, I'll teach you a beginner class. Like, that's all I'll do, really. But so what I was doing was I was hoping that I was able to give them a sense of love for the language, appreciation of the language, but also an appreciation of the complexity, because it is complex, but in a way that wouldn't scare them. What I want to do when I'm teaching Irish is hopefully share So the students will see that I love the language, that it's a fabulous language, and at least not turn them off the language.
Right. Yes.
So that they're kind of keen, going, oh yeah, well it does have its kind of quirky bits, but it really does come across this way. That it's a really, as I say, it's a thinking person's language.
The underground that was working here was the series of Irish language weekends. So a person who really was committed could attend 7, 8, 9 immersion weekends in a year. And so that would mean that each of those weekends you would go, make a commitment, the whole weekend, you're just going to speak Irish, you'll attend classes, there'll be cultural things that you'll be doing as well. But when you've got a break and you've got a chocolate bar and a cup of hot chocolate, you're still going to be thinking in Irish and you're talking in Irish. Good Jirake. So Jir Seachtain Awan in Montreal in Asian, go Toronto, Gugina Stoij into. And so people were moving from one place to another.
Well, there's the ICUF program, and that brings in graduate students from Ireland, and they go to the University of Ottawa. There's one in Concordia, and there's one in Toronto, and there's one down in the Maritimes. So we have some arrangements with them. We've had them come up for teaching at the Irish Language Weekend. We have different events where they have come to help out. There's a group in Ottawa that's called Caintis Cora. They have what they call Lá Gaelgas, where they'll have a day where you go up and have Irish classes and then have Cayley or Shimsa in the evening. And a lot of the members of it are members of the Ottawa branch of Comhaltas. Our members go up for that weekend as well, up in Arnprior.
What was going on in Ireland at the time, it was Eamon O'Keefe, who was the Minister of Gaeltacht and Rural Affairs and the islands. And he started the program for visiting professors, the young people. So each year there'd be about 7 new guest professors arrive, and these are young people. They weren't just satisfied to teach their classes at the universities. They would go out and network with the community. The best example of that was Ottawa. Ottawa did a really good job of pulling all of that together. They had a chair of Celtic studies at the university, which was part of the modern languages. But the Comhaltas branch had these folks working centrally in their program as well, teaching night school classes, teaching at the immersion weekends.
I think Comhaltas was involved, and it wouldn't just be Comhaltas Ottawa. I think it was Comhaltas Kingston as well, and Comhaltas Toronto, Sudbury, right? And I'm sure they're in Mississauga. There's a whole greater Toronto area there when I'm saying Toronto. That and I think that the language, all of these areas had created their own language immersion weekends, right? Rosemary O'Brien was very instrumental in starting the ones here out in Arnprior, where we go in here in Ottawa. And then the folks in Toronto were doing them before that. I think she had attended one in Toronto. I remember going to one in Wappingers Falls, New York.
Wow, right.
And it was a week-long one. Like you were driving that far, you were going for a week. And Mom had heard about it, and she went with a friend one summer. And then the following summer, lock, stock, and barrel, the girls, my sisters and I, we all went down. They had kids' classes and so on. And it was fantastic. It really was. And because then you met a whole bunch of people who were interested in Irish, who were 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 6th generation North American, but they were hell-bent on learning Irish. And some of them were brilliant. They had fabulous Irish. And that was inspiring for me. I hadn't started linguistics then, but I knew I liked languages. I knew there was something about me in languages. And so then as an adult, when I was driving around I wanted to get to these language weekends. The ones in Toronto, the ones up north of Toronto, and the Kingston ones and the Montreal ones. I had the bug. I was bitten by the bug, and it was like I found my people.
Where did you get your Irish from then? Classes here in this area?
Yes. So our CCE group has had lots of opportunities for people to attend classes over the years. It is available. We haven't been offering it with our teacher because you can actually get it through the University of Toronto has some right now, and I believe the group in Ottawa also is sponsoring them on Zoom.
We'd have the folks come up from the United States, talking about the people again. I think about the folks that would come up there. There were, Bob Burke would come, John Tierney,
Yes.
from Mayo, Mike McLaughlin, a retired lieutenant colonel from the Marines. And these guys are like the Three Stooges. They're just goofing off and playing off of each other the whole weekend. It's absolutely wonderful people. So they would come to our Comhaltas Immersion weekend in Kingston, and then we'd all pack up and we'd take our caravan down to the States, or we'd go over to Montreal. And each place had a personality of its own as well. Montreal had a ski lodge. They had a ski lodge that was founded by Jack Rabbit Johannesson. There's a whole life attached to it, and people were having a family type of atmosphere and development through the Irish language.
There's a troop group in Toronto that Alison Reed's been actively involved in, and they used to have one, and I think still will continue after COVID, up in Keswick. And that's a great event there. You go up Friday night, you're there Saturday and Sunday morning, and then after lunch on Sunday you head home. We have the Irish Language Weekend every year. With COVID, it's been online, but normally it's a full weekend at the Senior Centre, and there's classes Friday night, classes Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. There's workshops, and then there's a Ceilidh on the Saturday night. And then Sunday we have morning classes, and it wraps up. And we have people coming from all over, from the States, from Quebec, we've had people come in from Calgary even. And we have lots of amazing volunteer teachers, people like Donica O'Quinn and Paul Ferris and John O'Donoghue come. They come, they do not charge for teaching, and in fact they pay to attend there. They pay the full fee, and so with that kind of support, it's been a really big success for our branch.
There is interest for the language classes, for sure. How many people are involved in it to the point where they want to become fluent speakers? It's I think it's trickier. I think some people kind of figure to spend a month or so in the Gaeltacht and be exposed to it. And I often say English was the language that ate the world. It was actually, I didn't come up with that. That was an expression. A grad student when I was doing work in linguistics who said that English was the language that ate the world, and I said that's perfect. And those of us who speak the lesser spoken languages, we just kind of have to up our game, and be proud that we know the language. Even the people go, who speaks Irish? A whole lot of people speak Irish. Thank you very much. People are interested in it. People want to go back to their roots.
Why couldn't there be a part of Canada that was in the Gaeltacht? And the answer, of course, is that, there can be. Why don't we have a Gaeltacht in Canada? Buying a piece of property, running summer camps for kids, and that sort of thing. And that took off as the Gaeltacht project. There was a unity in what we were doing, and we were able to draw things together. So, we talked about Kingston and Toronto and Montreal, and then Ottawa came online. They had very strong Comhaltas connections. Sudbury came on again, Comhaltas branch up there.
So I'm involved in the Gaeltacht. We're connected, like Harp of Tara. There's a lot of overlap with the people in Harp of Tara and the Gaeltacht, but they're not the same. But there is a lot of overlap, and we support them, and they've actually stepped up and really kind of become a broad organization. They are going strong actually now because they've had 2 online weeks. How do I put it? It's still happening, and there are people who really want to support the Gaeltacht, and there are a lot of people all over the globe, but basically all over North America who are interested in doing Irish. It's been interesting with COVID watching like the numbers of people that have come to like our event in Harp of Tara, but also the Gaeltacht that have come from like Vancouver or Connecticut or different places, California. Like you meet them again and they're like, oh, I'm in California now. So but they're there. We're doing classes together.
A lot of the Comhaltas members, the Harp of Tara members, are very actively involved in the Gaeltacht project. In fact, for the first couple of years, we sponsored the Gaeltacht events so that they could have insurance coverage. But we've helped with acquiring the land, with getting it rezoned, and getting the site ready for events, helped with fundraising, helped with all of the different events. And through the summer camp, it's been mostly Harp of Tara members that look after the kitchen, look after organizing the meals and some of the logistics of the event. Arlt has been the prime organizer of the classes and arranging for the teachers.
I have over the years attended the language weekends and weeks in Tamworth at the Gaeltacht, the Canadian Gaeltacht, and in 2013 I was brave enough, I don't know if that's the word, to join a group of Canadian Irish speakers who went and did a tour of all the Irish speaking areas in Ireland, and it was absolutely an amazing experience. It was a little intimidating, but I kind of got over it.
Because it's a fabulous group of people. Like the language in itself and the culture in itself are rich, rich.
Yeah.
But the people make the whole event alive.
Yeah.
And when you were back talking about when we were on the Gaeltacht, the weeks, boy, that's a lot of work.
Oh,
that is a whole lot of work.
Yes.
And and sometimes you're making breakfast, and then you're teaching classes, and then you're doing something else, and then you're cleaning up at the end, and you're singing at a campfire, like a full days, fabulous days.
Yes.
That's 1 week of the holiday that you think, you show up to work at the university on Monday morning. It's like, weren't you on holidays last week? Not really, but because the people made it happen. The people made those language weeks brilliant.
Yeah.
And I still remember there's a couple of guys that I ran into one year. We had left school in Erinsville to go back to the Gaeltacht for lunch or to the beach maybe. We weren't going all the way back. And I had to go back for something, and these two, Jack and John, can't remember the last name right now, and they were there, and they're going, is there not Irish language classes here? They drove up from Maryland or somewhere.
Yeah.
And I went, but we're just on lunch break. Oh, well, can we join? And I said, well, come on, have lunch with us. And then and then I was teaching in the afternoon in the beginner class, so they ended up in my class, and they stayed for the week. Yeah. They stayed for the week, and then they came back on a regular basis.
I remember when we went on the Gaeltacht tour of Ireland in 2013, they were amazed that people living in Canada would have any interest in speaking Irish. But they were genuinely impressed that people in Canada were interested in the language.
So I think there's a lot of opportunities that are becoming available for language that didn't previously exist. It doesn't seem so long in the future at this point where someone can really live through the Irish language, do their typing, do their communication in their language of choice, in the Irish language, and have that translated for all hearers in a more or less simultaneous way.
People have to keep it alive. And I think people realize how special the Irish language is. Maybe because it had been persecuted and it had been beaten out of people, literally, figuratively as well, but that there's a sense of pride.
Yes.
And that Irish is its own language. It has its people, it has its speakers, but the speakers aren't all over on the Emerald Isle.
No.
They're across the planet
Yeah.
and proud of it.